Babe, wake up! The niche schizo YouTuber dropped another One Piece power ranking essay that nobody asked for! Jokes aside, I'm quite excited for today's video because it is essentially a matchup between one of the biggest powerhouses of the old One Piece against the deadly new threats that await the Straw Hats in the final stretch of the story. Ironically enough, both of these formidable forces peaked around the Marineford arc and have since been sorta AFK, maybe awaiting a badass re-entry. Today, we'll be asking ourselves whether Granddaddy Garp in his prime would be able to defeat the rough and tough Marshall D. Teach, better known as Blackbeard. As always, I will set the stage with each character's feats before we pit them against one another. Buckle up, because this is not quite a versus debate, but rather a collision between two opposing fight philosophies. With all that out of the way, let's get right to it. First, let's focus on Garp, a force to be reckoned with, even during his days as an old grumpy fart. Even Oda portrays Garp as being built different, rivaling the infamous Gol D Roger without any devil fruit powers. Since he had mastered armament haki before it was even really a trend during the Great Pirate Era, his punches were treated as nothing less than natural disasters. And while we may not have seen it in action, his narrative dominance implies that he possesses Conqueror's haki as well. Though that part is still up for speculation. So we will mainly focus on his raw physical strength at his main feat, which easily surpasses most known characters. Perhaps the ultimate street cred that Garp possesses is his fight against the monsters of the Rocks era in God Valley, where he teamed up with Roger to take down the biggest pirate threats of that time. Every single person, whether Marine or pirate, acknowledges Garp for his raw potential, since he was constantly facing off against top-tier enemies without relying on any gimmicks. Like Rock Lee and Naruto, Garp is the closest thing we can get to the ceiling of physical strength alone in One Piece. What makes him truly stand out is how Oda portrays him as just being that guy in his prime, with nothing being able to stop him. So what does Blackbeard have in his arsenal that would make this a fight even worth talking about? For starters, Blackbeard has the Yami no Mi, or the Darkness Fruit, at his disposal. The devastating fruit is canonically stated to be the most evil devil fruit in existence. Aside from allowing the user to manifest and embody an all-consuming darkness, the fruit also nullifies devil fruit abilities after coming in contact with the user. Though, that part should not affect Garp too much. In addition to that, Blackbeard possesses the power of Whitebeard's Gura Gura no Mi, the Quake Fruit, which can level entire continents with little to no effort. While both of those things are considerable threats on their own, what makes Blackbeard a dangerous foe is his scummy and opportunistic fighting style, preserving through all kinds of BS just to rage bait his enemy. He can and will use any means necessary to win a brawl, no matter how dishonorable it might be. In the chaos of a battlefield, he thrives, his crew's synergy working overtime to amplify his threat. Yet, there's the gag about him having a horrible pain tolerance, but he still made it to the last leg of the 1200-plus chapter race. So, my point still stands. See, Teach would not be caught dead dealing with an opponent with grace. Instead, enemies get a whirlpool of crap flung their way until the entire battlefield is just a collapsing Benadryl-fueled nightmare around them. Now, let's get into the spaghetti and meatballs of the debate, huh? Is Garp's haki enough to withstand the threat of not one, but two massively overpowered devil fruits? The One Piece world post-time skip treats haki as an invaluable resource, allowing devil fruit users to be hit where it really hurts. Not only is it a detailed mechanic for the overpowered superhumans, but it also allows the non-users to stand a chance against devil fruit abilities and bask in the limelight for a bit. Case in point, Big Daddy Shanks. Staying true to that spirit post-time skip, Haki is shown numerous times trumping devil fruits in battles, and Prime Garp's armament haki would likely be enough to bypass the Quake's defenses. Moreover, while both of Blackbeard's fruits are deadly, neither of them is precise in delivering the fatality. Someone like Garp heavily favors close-range combat, going from the finishing blow before the enemy is even done thinking about his counter, which is something that Blackbeard hates. However, the Gura Gura no Mi's tremors are not something that can simply be ignored by conventional durability. Pairing that with the Yami no Mi's ability to pull opponents into unfavorable positions and even destroy them, and you have a recipe for disaster. When you think about it, Garp's Haki would definitely stand a chance against Teach's double trouble abilities. But it would become a race against time, depending on whether Garp is able to finish the fight fast. In a drawn-out battle, the plays heavily favor Blackbeard's abilities over the conventional throwing of Haki-coated hands. The matchup becomes uncomfortable because it is unparalleled skill going up against Hacks mode, literally designed to overwrite fights and the laws of physics. However, raw abilities alone are not the only factor that decides the outcome of a fight of this caliber. In fact, some would argue that actual combat experience and battle IQ surpass a game of power levels in modern One Piece combat logic. Being an ancient marine from the Jurassic era, it is safe to say that Garp has a ton of battle experience. He has faced off against deadly foes all of his life and proved himself in numerous high-level wars. Given that, he instinctively understands the flow of the battlefield and it comes to him naturally. In a contest of battle, discipline, and strategy, he has Blackbeard beat. That's because half the reason for Blackbeard being a horrible enemy is the fact that he is a horrible and cunning man at heart. Not only that, but he is also quite reckless, being shown to routinely take excessive damage during combat as long as it means securing the W. On the other hand, there is Garp, who capitalizes on forcing openings and then delivering the final blow, whereas Teach is all about enduring the miasma of BS thrown his way and waiting for the perfect opportunity to sneak in a Mortal Kombat fatality. This opportunistic style of fighting would not go unnoticed or underestimated by someone as seasoned as Garp, especially in his prime, but a prolonged battle would still favor Blackbeard's unconventional approach to mental composure. With all of that done and dusted, let's talk about the most reliable and unreliable source Oda-sensei has to say about all of this. Yeah, nobody enjoys the canon reality check sections, but I need to put these in so the hardcore weebs don't break into my house and pour milk over my Pokemon card collection. Cope as much as Garp fanboys may, but Unk was never meant to be a prominent late-game character. In fact, Garp exists to embody the tough-as-nails Great Pirate era, the peak of the olden times when Roger was still active and the seas were far more fearsome. On the contrary, Blackbeard symbolizes the chaos of the final stretch of the series, where discipline and rules be damned because he said so. Oda is constantly allowing for new eras to bypass old legends, seeing as how the story has gone from stretchy goofball pirate to sun god of freedom over the years. In that sense, Teach is protected by the narrative inevitability, whereas Granddaddy Garp lacks that same momentum, pushing him forward given that his prime was so long ago. And he mainly serves as a thought on the back burner to sometimes keep the story going, much like Sengoku. If we were treating the fight as a vacuum, Garp would be a terrifying force to be reckoned with, but within the greater story of One Piece, Blackbeard cannot be allowed to fall too early. All of the greatest legacy characters in the story have always served as benchmarks instead of endpoints, waiting patiently for their turn to be surpassed by the newest or the worst of generations. See what I did there? However, we cannot daydream about those shows like One Piece or JoJo's and expect raw attributes to stump everyone by serving as plot armor. No, this is not meant to downplay Garp or glaze Blackbeard in the slightest, but rather to respect and acknowledge One Piece's trends of legends not remaining untouchable for too long. Really, a lot of the outcome would depend on the right thing happening at the right time. So, with us having broken down all feats of both characters, let's ask ourselves the question once more. Would Garp, in his prime with no Unk nerfs, be able to defeat Blackbeard, who possesses two of the most powerful devil fruits? Sorry, Marine fanboys, but Garp has such a slim chance of winning that it is not even worth considering. Sure, someone could argue that under the ideal conditions, Garp has a good chance, like if Teach devoured the entire Cheesecake Factory menu the night before, but this is my channel, and I am basically an amalgam of correct opinions and superior intellect, so what I say goes. Of course, a clean and quick fight would favor Garp, since the power nullification is no threat to him, and his advanced armament Haki guarantees some disgusting damage dealt to the squishy Blackbeard. However, a fight against someone like Blackbeard is anything but clean or quick. All of the odds are stacked against Garp, since his durability is no match for Blackbeard's in a prolonged encounter. Moreover, both the Gura Gura no Mi and the Yami Yami no Mi are destructive on a large scale, ensuring that simply getting out of harm's way would greatly exhaust Garp if he does not want to be chewed up and spat out by the darkness, only to be pressed like a vinyl record by a stray shockwave. Either way, it would be a high diff fight for Blackbeard because Garp's power is in no way overrated. Simply constructed in a way that does not favor the last leg of the series, where raw power just does not cut it. Not only is Teach protected by the narrative direction of One Piece, but he is also scaled according to the new era, while Garp peaked in the background when most of the new power scaling concepts were non-existent. Well, that wraps up today's maladaptive daydreaming session, where we broke down whether Garp in his prime could have defeated the modern-day Blackbeard. I hope you guys enjoyed watching these video essays as much as I like making them. Comment down below whether you think Garp could possess Conqueror's Haki, and be sure to show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing. If you don't, let's just say you will be getting a visit from my good friend